Hey guys, it's your boy Skitty. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for stopping by. Today has been somewhat of a long day, but I have a good amount of energy and am actually feeling pretty decent. So things went pretty smooth today. Ended up waking up super early today. As I mentioned in my last video, I had to wake up and get ready for work. The program through my recovery center that helps me pay for rent for sober living. So I ended up catching the bus. Things went smooth. Day was actually a little bit cooler than normal, which helps. The heat here can get a little bit crazy sometimes, and having it cool down even just a few degrees definitely feels a lot better. Ended up making it to the group office, and we ended up having our initial morning group read from the big book, and from what we read, there's a couple of spots that hit me and stood out. The first one hit me like a ton of bricks. The person was talking about, putting their sobriety off until Super Bowl Sunday, basically, procrastinating and putting it off for another date so they could enjoy partying, during a celebration, who doesn't like, having a couple, beers or partying or any type of addictive element during the Super Bowl. I know I used to, and why that hit me so hard is with me and my wife, we were planning on getting sober, and this was right before a few holidays, and we were both thinking about getting sober, and we got talking about it and came to the conclusion that with Halloween coming up, Thanksgiving coming up, New Year's coming up, Christmas coming up, and New Year's coming up, that we put a pin on it until the new year, and then just kind of stay in our addictions, and then as soon as the new year hit, that was our New Year's resolution, is that we were going to be sober, work on our recovery and get out of active addiction. Well, one thing, definitely a hard lesson learned is tomorrow is never guaranteed, and why put off tomorrow something that you know that you can do today? That was a very hard lesson that I had to learn at that point in time. Still haven't even learned it up until this last point that I had to go back into recovery, because I fell back into my addictions because I was going through the motions, man. I was hurting pretty bad. But it's one of those questions on my mind where if we would have gotten sober when we were talking about it, just one of the plenty of what ifs, who knows if if she would still be here today, that question will plague me for the rest of my life. If I had the chance to do it over again, definitely we would have stopped right then and there when we had that discussion. But that one kind of hurt, that was a stinger, always is when I start going through the what ifs, this, that, and the other, We continued to read, and there's another portion of it where it talked about going to different liquor stores to pick up alcohol so the clerk or clerks don't recognize you from the day before. I did that a few times in my last relapse, and a bunch of times before that when I was in heavy active addiction, where sometimes I'd go in there just straight plastered, and every once in a while they would turn me down. They would know that I was intoxicated, so I would go to one liquor store, and if they turned me down, I'd just go over to the next liquor store next door, and every once in a while I'd be able to sneak through under the radar and was able to get my alcohol. And then Sunday would come rolling around and all the liquor stores would be closed, So I would have to go to a gas station or local store to purchase beer or wine coolers or whatever such that was available. You know, active addiction mindset, call it what you will. So that one rang a bell as well. After that, we ended up doing our work portion of the program. We ended up going to one of the sober living houses, picked up a bunch of bushes, and pretty much straightened out their yard, made it look a little bit better and nicer. We ended up taking all of the excess branches and bushes out to the dump and dropped that off. Ended up dropping a couch off to one of the sober living that I'm currently in, and basically after that we called it a day. All in all, it wasn't bad. It filled the day. I was, I had a good amount of time after the fact. I was thinking about getting my hair cut, but I called the place where I was thinking about getting it from, and they were full. I guess there's something going on around here, so basically I just kind of called it an L on the haircut. I was contemplating on if I even wanted to cut my hair. I'm kind of in between on that. Not quite sure. I mean, my hair, it's actually gotten pretty long. This back part's starting to fro out a little bit. And I don't mind it long. I like the length, and I'm thinking about shaving my sides. But with how hot it's been, I've also thought about shaving it completely. I'm currently single right now, well, widowed right now, not single, I guess you can call it single, but yeah, I'm currently widowed right now, so I don't really have too many people that I need to impress in regards to my looks. I'm not currently looking to be in any kind of a relationship anytime soon. I mean, if it happens, it happens. I'm super codependent as fuck, and I'm old school, man. I'm all about love. I'm not really into the whole fucking one night stand type of a thing. Like, I like having relationships that have depth to them and something that I can build on. Like the good old one night thing and this, that, and the other. Yeah, it's fine, but it's, from what I've learned over the years, it's one of those things that's kind of just leaves you empty inside. It's like you get your rocks off, but it is what it is. With no attachments, friends with benefits, things of that nature. Like, if I'm going to invest in somebody that wholeheartedly to share myself with them, I usually like to get a good feel of if this is going somewhere or not before I do so. Like I said, call me old-fashioned, call me what you will. I like romance, I like chivalry, I like being treated, the reciprocation. So yeah, at this juncture, if I was to shave my head, I wouldn't really care too much. As far as my outside appearances are concerned, I'm a work in progress. I have my ups and my downs. Anyway, after our initial group, I basically just kicked it for a while, relaxed, was feeling a little bit tired, but managed to end up making it to our second group. Now, our second group is what's called a therapeutic community. I've talked about this before in some of my previous videos, where we basically go around the room and we call each other out on some of our character defects. We call individual call outs, group call outs, and then we make it to self call outs and kudos. And we initially started off with kudos, had some great kudos for a brother in the house, great guy, and ended up getting into individual call outs. There was a lot. Oh no, yeah, I totally skipped something. So for our first group, we actually had not our second group, the one that I was getting into, our first group, we actually had our equine therapy with the horses. And we haven't done that since I've gotten out of residential. Horses freak me out. I'm not going to lie to you. When I first got into the program the first time, I was terrified of horses. I'm not gonna lie. Like, for me, it was like heights and horses were kind of at the same thing, and everything else just kind of falls to the wayside. Like, spiders don't necessarily freak me out. Snakes don't necessarily freak me out. Like, there's certain levels to the stuff, but like heights freak me out and horses freak me out. Not so much now on both ends. Heights don't necessarily freak me out as bad because I've come to the realization that it's more the vertigo than the heights. It's that initial whoa factor when you realize how far up you are or if you look down. But then after that, I'm usually pretty chill. With horses, I've never really been the biggest fan of horses. Are they majestic creatures? Are they nice to look at? Are they, reliable if you need transportation, if you do ride horses and stuff like that? Yeah, I like horses from the outside looking in, but there's no part of my inner being that wants to go around fucking with a horse, to be perfectly honest with you. Equine therapy was very new to me when I came into this, and I made it known, like, horses freak me out, and it was kind of one of those things where it's like a part of the program, so deal with it, And so I have, and I've gotten used to some of the horses there. I know they're gentle giants, and I have a respect for them, as one of my brothers used to say. Not so much of a fear now. Like I'll respect them. I'm not so much afraid of them, but they still freak me out, man. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, we had an exercise today where we went around to 10 different horses and put our hands on them or touched them for 10 whole seconds. And no, we went to, I believe, 13 different horses. 13 different horses, and we had to touch them for 10 seconds. So we ended up going around to each and every one of the horses, and what I learned from that group was kind of, people in general, because there was some horses, like when you first meet them, where they would shy away, like, they isolated, they didn't want to be touched, they kind of moved away. There was some horses where you'd go to touch them, just like a person, and they shook their head and they're like not having it. That's just like with anybody. It's like, they may not fuck with you. Like, no, I don't want to deal with you right now. And they'll shake their head and kind of back off. And then there's the horses that are just chill mode. You go up to them, or like a person, you shake their hand, and they're like, hey, how's it going? Nothing too off the wall. You conversate and move on. You get to know that person on a basic level. And then there's the horses there that were like, you ended up, getting up close to them and you put your hands on them, and they started following us, like, hey, like that person who's all like, I really like you, we're best buds forever, and that energy is really cool with human beings as far as horses are concerned. When they start walking behind you and trying to like sneak out of the pen with you, yeah, it can be a little bit overwhelming, to say the least, when you have kind of a respect for horses. But anyway, it was a good group. I enjoyed it. It was very relaxing, low-key, not over-the-top energy. Some of them can kind of get a little bit overwhelming. Sometimes I get something from it, and sometimes I don't. It just all depends on the day. I would like to say that I get something every time that I go there, but it's hit or miss, honestly, for me. But anyway, ended up making it back to the office. Second group started. We started our TC, the therapeutic community, where we call each other out. And the kudos went great. Our individual call-outs went great. Our group call-outs went great. And we made it to self-call-outs. And there's been something that I've been kind of dealing with since last week prior, that I've kind of been dancing around, just mulling around in my head, because, I needed time to kind of, digest and kind of, regulate my emotions in regards to what had happened. So, kind of to break it down into layman's terms, last week on Wednesday, I ended up finding out that my ex's son is now in the residential program that I was currently in before, that I just barely made it out of. and I ended up running into that individual, and needless to say, it was kind of awkward, to say the least. As far as that individual is concerned, I have no problems, no qualms with that individual, and it's very nice seeing that individual seeking out recovery and their sobriety. That portion of it warms my heart. But it's definitely kind of a touchy situation, because me and this individual's mother were in a relationship for a while, and she was my fiance for a while. I almost married the girl. Due to her addictions, though, and this is before I knew anything about recovery or anything like that, I was basically white knuckling it, and I gave up everything for a while. Did it stick? No. But her addictions were a little bit above my pay grade, to say the least, and it freaked me out. I got scared, and I left the relationship because I felt like I was going to go down in the ship with her, and it just really got very uncomfortable. We were arguing, we were running into a lot of problems, and granted, I have a lot of respect for the lady. At the same time, I had to know when to say when at that point in time. We were both young, we were both in love, and for me at that point in time, I jumped ship. I bailed out. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. And I made my own executive decision to call it quits on that relationship. Did it get me my mom's ring thrown at me and bouncing off my face? Yes. Well deserved, But at the same time, it felt like the right move for me at that point in time. I needed to clear up. I needed to sober up. I needed to even out. And my significant other at that point in time wasn't necessarily exactly on board. Things were getting very chaotic and very crazy for me. And in my emotional field, So that was a tough pill to swallow. That hurt like a bitch, not gonna lie. And there was a lot of things that I had to deal with. But do I regret it? Yes and no, to a certain degree. I mean, there was a few resentments that I held for a while, and nonetheless, I don't know exactly how it affected her children. Her children, I cared a lot about her children. I actually had no problems with any of them. They're actually great kids. Were they wild? Yeah. Were they a pain in the ass sometimes? Yeah. But they were young and they were kids, and I actually related to them a lot, because I was young. I was a kid once, so I understood it. And we had some great times together. Her kids were actually very enjoyable to be around. And so now seeing this young man grown up and having to kind of go through the same things that I've gone through. I mean, I don't know his story in whole, but it's bittersweet to say the least, because it's like, one, do I wish for anyone to be in any kind of a recovery type of a situation due to their addictions? Fuck no. If you could not have to go through what we go through, by all means, congratulations. Gold trophy, gold star for you. But, on the other hand, as I mentioned previously, seeing him there actually moving his best foot forward in regards to an addiction or addictions, that's top shelf, man. I have nothing but fucking... I gotta give the kid his roses, sort of say. So there's no real resentments there. But I can't lie and say that I haven't necessarily been future tripping, catastrophizing, negative thinking in regards to that individual's feelings. I don't know how his feelings of what happened after me and my ex-girlfriend broke up, my ex-fiance broke up. I don't, we never had that talk. Also, I don't know his resentments, I don't know what his struggles and what he had to go through at that point in time. It's a very tender subject. It's not something that I'm just gonna while out on him and go up to him right out of the blue and be like, hey, because that's like reopening old wounds, like I wouldn't want to have to do that to anybody. As far as if he wants to discuss with me, I'm open to it. Like if there's anything that he needs to process or understand, I've already made my peace. Last time I was in the program, those were some of my things that I needed to deal with in my recovery that I made my spiritual peace with. I had to let it go. It was out of my hands. It's been damn near almost 20 years since I've seen the kid. Last time I seen him, he was knee high to a grasshopper, very young, very just a little kid, dude. And now he's grown up and older now and going through the motions like any young man would. And so, I don't know his mind frame. I don't know his, field of emotions in regards to the subject. He may hate my fucking guts, I'm not quite sure. We're just gonna have to see how that plays out. But I do wish the kid well. Long story short. Anyway, after group ended up having a couple of brothers offering me a ride home. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you. That was very kind of you. Don't think for one second that any of you guys' generosity has been unnoticed. I ended up making it home, and I'm currently about to make some dinner here in a while, do a little bit of laundry, and probably take a shower and call it a night. But yeah, thank you guys. I love you, and stay blessed.